Hi, Tim Andersen here, the Appraiser's Advocate. Thank you for sitting down with me today to take a few minutes to chat. I appreciate it. We're going to engage in a little training, a little informing, and a little mentoring as we talk this morning. And we call this one 5 Ways a Proper Reconciliation Keeps Your Assets Out of a Sling. If you get a dictionary and you look up to reconcile, basically it means to settle or resolve differences. In an appraisal, that is between the approaches as well as what's in the approaches. That's what reconciliation does in an appraisal. It settles or resolves the differences in the approaches and in the data within the approaches. USPAP and Fannie Mae both give to appraisers this opportunity and responsibility, and both expect appraisers to meet it. Now, do we appraisers take advantage of this opportunity and rise to this responsibility? A proper reconciliation, faithfully done in every appraisal and report, will help us keep our assets out of that proverbial sling, both with clients as well as state appraisal boards, which is the big one, frankly. So let's get started. We're going to start out with USPAP, specifically Standard Rule 1-6A and B, and then we're going to take a look at the Fannie Mae Selling Guide, specifically Section B4-1.3-11, specifically the reconciliation section. So in USPAP, Standard Rule 1-6A and B require the appraiser to, and this is basically a quote, to properly reconcile the quality and quantity of data available and analyzed within the approaches used to conclude what? To conclude a credible value opinion, and to properly reconcile the applicability and relevance of the approaches, methods, and techniques used to arrive credibly at your value conclusion. USPAP also understands and wants us to understand that there really are 6 steps in the reconciliation process, not merely 2. And here they are. Step 1 is to reconcile the quality of both the data available and the data analyzed. Step 3 is reconcile the quantity of both the data available and for the data analyzed. 5 is to reconcile the applicability of the approaches, etc. And 6 is to reconcile the relevance of the approaches, etc. So the reconciliation process in USPAP is really quite complete. Then, in the Fannie Mae Selling Guide, again, Section B4-1.3-11, the reconciliation section, Fannie requires us to consider the reliability and the applicability of each of the approaches we use. Now, that asterisk, you see, has to do with the word reliability. Fannie uses it, USPAP does not. USPAP does not refer to an appraisal as reliable. It never does. Whereas Fannie, for its own reasons and purposes, does. So we just go along with that. Then Fannie expects appraisers to reconcile the reasonableness and the validity of the indicated values. Again, validity is a word Fannie uses. It is a word USPAP does not use when it comes to a value conclusion. Fannie expects the appraiser to reconcile the reasonableness of the available data. That sounds a whole lot like what USPAP asked us to do. Fannie expects us to select and then report the approaches given the most weight. In other words, explain why we gave the approaches most weight or the approaches little weight or whatever. And then the 5th step in this process is from these reconciled, collected, verified, and analyzed data, form a credible value opinion. Relative to a credible value opinion, this is also what Fannie Mae says. The reconciliation, in other words, reconciling the approaches, the data, etc., into a final value conclusion, is indeed based on the appraiser's judgments of the results of the valuation process, but it must never be a simple average of those. Now, a weighted average is okay, but then it also requires a proper explanation of the weighting process as well. The final reconciled value must be within the range of the values of the approaches used. Now, what this means is, if you use only the sales comparison approach, the final value must be within the ranges of the adjusted comparable sales. If it falls outside of those ranges, then with Fannie Mae and probably USPAP, there is a problem that is going to have to be handled. We're getting real close to the end of things. It's time to wrap up. It's time to review. It's also time to hit those like and subscribe buttons so that you can hear all of these Tim Talks, and I'll appreciate that very much. Thank you. So go ahead, hit those like and subscribe buttons. I appreciate it. What are the 5 ways a proper reconciliation keeps your assets out of a sling? Let's go over them. There are 6 steps in the appraisal process, not 2. That's the first one. Reconcile the quality of the data available. 2. Reconcile the quality of the data analyzed. 3. Reconcile the quantity of data available. 4. Reconcile the quantity of the data analyzed. 5. Reconcile the applicability of the approaches, etc. And 6. Reconcile the relevance of the approaches. Here's another way to keep your assets out of a sling. Since you write the reconciliation last, that act forces you to review every step you've taken when you write the reconciliation. This may point out errors you did not realize you made and act as a quality control factor. Now, this latter, acting as a quality control factor, is really important since most of us, frankly, work out of very small shops and we don't have time or the budget to send out reports for private reviews to see if we've missed anything or done something incorrectly. So the opportunity to take a few minutes to do a reconciliation, to look at the data, look at the quality of the data, the quantity of the data, the quality of the analyses, etc., may help us keep our assets out of that proverbial sling. Number 3, writing a reconciliation gives you a chance to explain what, how, and why you did what you did, and maybe what, how, and why you didn't do what you didn't do, which, quite frankly, may also be important in an appraisal assignment. A proper reconciliation gives you a chance to explain why you chose to omit an approach or approaches, etc., from the analytics of the appraisal, thus why it's not in the report. Note that appraisers generally have no trouble explaining that they did or did not do something. However, they tend not to explain why they did or did not do something. And then those 2 asterisks up there where next to the word etc., why you chose to omit etc. Of course, this gives us the opportunity to explain why we omitted those, quote, better comps, unquote, that the AMC always sends over to us after we've submitted the report, when we know full well they're really not comparable at all. 5, a proper reconciliation makes you review your data, analyses, and protocols prior to coming up with a credible value opinion. Really, did you need 9 comps? Really? Could you get away with 5? Well, after your reconciliation, that's exactly what you might want to consider. Now, we talked about 5 ways of keeping your assets out of a sling. How about a 6th way, too? There's a bonus you didn't expect, right? That 6th way is remember to explain the logic and reasoning behind any adjustments. In other words, explain why you adjusted, not merely that you adjusted. And this is what Fannie Mae says. The appraiser must provide appropriate comments reflecting the logic and reasoning for the adjustments provided, especially for the characteristics reported on the appraisal report form between the sales or financing concessions and the condition line items. A statement only recognizing that an adjustment has been made is not acceptable. And unquote, and again, that's right from the Fannie Mae Selling Guide. And that asterisk refers to why you adjusted means the market justification and the market support you have for those adjustments. Those should be clear within the appraisal report itself. This last one, number 6, this bonus one, can be a big cover on your assets. Again, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for hitting that like and subscribe button, which I hope you already have. And I look forward to the next time we get together. There are more coming, quite frankly. I'm Tim Andersen, the Appraiser's Advocate. I'm here to help you. Please get in touch with me. If I can ever be of service to you, contact me at tim@theappraisersadvocate.com. It will be a pleasure to hear from you. It will be a pleasure to work with you. My best to you and all of yours. Be safe and well. Thank you. And we're clear. Oh, and by the way, are your professional fees professional enough?